of the dawn, when the light first broke through, promised a future bright and strong, in a land so vast, so true. But they sold our hopes for gold, traded dreams for bitter lies. Now the stories of the bold are drowned in mournful cries. Oh, we dreamt of a home where the rivers run free. Now we walk on the ruins of what was meant to be, shattered hopes and broken streams.
As Muguland neared independence, it saw the rise of three pivotal leaders, each embodying the aspirations of their tribes. Sir Mansabello emerged in the north to champion the aspirations of the Awasa people. Chief Awolowo became the voice of the Yorubawa in the west, and Chief Nana Zikizi became accepted as the leader of the Okorobia in the east. As these leaders jostled for position and power in the emerging independent country of Muguland, each of these leaders also got particularized with distinct and different approaches to governance in the complex nation. While the northern Awasa and western Yorubawa leaders staunchly prioritized their tribal identities and aspirations, the eastern Okorobia leader, Chief Nana Zikizi, envisioned a broader continental unity where tribal loyalty would be sublimated for a continental alliance. His dream was not just a unified Muguland, but an entire Africa united as one nation, transcending tribal divisions. Here is a brief profile of these three wise men at the dawn of the independence for Muguland after decades of colonization by the non-Don government. Chief Nana Zikizi. In the east, Chief Nana Zikizi was a charismatic leader who championed the cause of the Okorobia region. He was a skilled orator and an excellent strategist who believed in the power of unity and cooperation. He was deeply committed to the development of the region and worked tirelessly to improve the lives of the people. Zikizi had founded the Okoro Naga Party, ONP, a political party that claimed to be detribalized, but in reality mainly advocated more for the interests of the Okorobia region above all, while it played lip service to the idea of a detribalized Muguland. The party gained popularity quickly, and Zikizi was elected as the first premier of the Okorobia region in 1955. During his time in office, Zikizi implemented a series of reforms and initiatives that helped to boost the economy of the Okorobia region. He established new industries, invested in infrastructure, and created programs to support farmers and small business owners. Zikizi was also a vocal advocate for African unity and played a leading role in the struggle for independence. He worked closely with other leaders from across the country, and his influence was felt far beyond the Okorobia region. Adding to Chief Nana Zikizi's profile, an intriguing anecdote circulated among the people of Muguland. It was rumored that Zikizi, with his continental outlook, harbored ambitions for a centralized Muguland government post-independence. Believing in the superiority of his educated and economically robust Okorobia people, he was credited with a controversial statement. The tribes of Muguland are destined to be led by the superior Okorobias. This statement, whether true or a fabrication, added a layer of complexity to his character. It portrayed him as a leader with a vision not just for regional supremacy, but for a unified Muguland under Okorobia leadership. This anecdote contributed to the mixed perceptions of Zikizi among the tribes, painting him as a figure of admiration for some and concern for others. In the run-up to independence, Zikizi emerged as a key figure in the negotiations with the British government. He fought tirelessly to ensure that the interests of the Okorobia region of Muguland were protected, and his efforts helped to shape the future of the country. Despite facing numerous challenges and setbacks, Zikizi remained committed to his vision of a united and prosperous Muguland. His leadership and dedication were instrumental in shaping the political fortunes of the Okorobia region and setting the stage for a brighter future for all Mugulanders. In the west, there was Chief Obafezo Awolowo, a shrewd and strategic thinker who rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most influential politicians of his time. He was an intellectual, a writer, and a visionary leader with a deep commitment to education and social justice. He was also a skilled orator and a great mobilizer of people. However, his high expectations and uncompromising nature often made him appear aloof and distant. Chief Obafezo Awolowo from the western region was a political giant and a man of integrity. He was a successful lawyer before joining politics and became the premier of the western region of Muguland in 1954. He had a vision to modernize the region, and he implemented many innovative policies in education, healthcare, and agriculture that made the region prosperous. Chief Awolowo rose to prominence as a leader of the Yorubawa people in the western region. As the leader of the Yorubawa Action Congress, he was elected as the premier of the western region of Muguland in 1956. Under his leadership, the western region flourished with major investments in education, infrastructure, and agriculture. Chief Awolowo's government implemented a free primary education scheme, built roads, bridges, and hospitals, and expanded the production of cocoa, which was the region's major export. As the entire country of Muguland geared up for its inevitable independence, Chief Obafemi Awolowo continued to build on his efforts to modernize the region by implementing policies to expand the economy and infrastructure development. During this period, he faced several challenges, including political rivalries with other regions and some of his political opponents. However, he was able to maintain his popularity with the people due to his policies' impact on the region's development. In the run-up to independence in 1960, Chief Obafemi Awolowo played a critical role in the negotiations with the other regions and the colonial government to ensure a smooth transition to independence. Despite some opposition from other regions, he worked tirelessly to ensure that the western region got a fair deal in the negotiations. In the north, there was Sir Mansa Bello, a traditionalist and a man of the people. He was the regent of the Awosa tribe, and his rule was marked by his deep connection with the masses. He was a masterful negotiator, a skillful administrator, and a strong advocate for his people. He was also deeply committed to the Islamic faith and had a strong sense of obligation to protect the values and traditions of his people. However, his conservative views often made him appear out of touch with the changing times. Sir Mansa Bello was a prominent leader representing the north. He was a descendant of a long line of royalty in the Awosa tribe, and he was known for his conservative and traditional views. Sir Mansa was an astute politician and a skilled administrator who rose to prominence in the 1950s because of his hard work, dedication, and commitment to the welfare of his people. As a young man, Sir Mansa Bello became a member of the Awosa People's Congress, the dominant political party in the northern part of Muguland. He quickly rose through the ranks of the party and became a close ally of Sir Abudwafafa Baluba, another very prominent leader from the northern tribes who would later go on to become the Prime Minister of the entire Muguland. In the early 1950s, Sir Mansa Bello became the Minister of Lands and Community Housing in the Awosa region. He used his position to promote traditional values, customs, and beliefs, and he worked tirelessly to improve the living conditions of his people. Sir Mansa Bello was an advocate of regional autonomy and was instrumental in the formation of the northern region's government. He believed that the north should have control over its own affairs, and he was fiercely protective of the region's interests. As Mugulanders approached independence in 1960, Sir Mansa Bello was a key figure in the negotiations between the different regions. He played a vital role in the constitutional conferences that paved the way for Muguland's independence and later became regarded one of the founding fathers of the country. Despite his successes, Sir Mansa Bello's political ascendancy was not without controversy. He was accused of nepotism and favoritism, and some of his policies were criticized for being regressive and out of touch with the needs of the people. Still, on the eve of independence, Sir Mansa Bello was widely regarded as a hero to champion the cause of the North and a symbol of the region's traditional values and heritage. These three charismatic men of outstanding achievements represented the interests of the three major tribes in Muguland, and each got ready to do battle for the juicy power at the center in the independent country of Muguland. It was a time of joy, anticipation, and unease, as everyone knew that the smiling faces of these tribal champions were a mask for the rigid determination of each to be the ruler over all of Muguland at independence. At the same time, the European government of London that had enriched itself at the expense of the vast wealth of Muguland also watched these trio of Muguland regional leaders very carefully to see which of them would best represent London government's interests when they turn over the reins of power.
In the pre-independence constitutional conference, the big issue that faced the soon-to-be independent country was whether the over 200 tribes that coalesced into three major regions of Awosa, Okorobia, and Yorubawa on tribal groupings were to be kept together in one nation or be allowed to separate into at least three distinct countries. There was a national debate against the backdrop of the fact that most of the major tribes had different social, political, religious, and economic aspirations based on their cultural experiences before the Nandan government forced all of them into one country for its own governing convenience. The major tribes were already exhibiting signs that they were strange bedfellows forced to live in the same bed for almost 50 years. In fact, a few years before, the Awosa region had threatened to secede at independence and were only cowed back into line with the strong persuasions and threats from some of the leaders of the other tribes at the time. Therefore, as the issue of separation or unity reared its head again on the eve of independence, the three major leaders of the tribes, Chief Nana Zikizi of the Okorobia tribe, Sir Mansa Bello of the Awosa tribe, and Chief Obafeso Awolowo of the Yorubawa tribe, had different opinions on whether to keep the country as one entity or split it along tribal lines.
Chief Obafeso Awolowo, representing the Yorubawa region, argued that each tribe should develop on its own without being held back by others. He believed that the Yorubawas, being the most educated and industrious, would fare better on their own without the burden of carrying along underdeveloped regions. He used figures and statistics showing how far ahead of the other tribes the Yorubawas had gone in terms of pioneering developments in their own corner of Muguland. He even reminded them that the Yorubawas launched the first TV station, the first radio station, and the first university in Muguland to show they are doing well on their own and do not need the burden of a union of people that were fundamentally different in key areas. Sir Mansa Bello, representing the North, agreed with Chief Awolowo's sentiments, stating that the North was not yet ready for a united Muguland. He argued that the North was lagging in terms of education and industrialization and would be better off developing at its own pace. Sir Bello also expressed concerns about the potential loss of power and influence that the North would face in a united Muguland.
On the other hand, Chief Nana Zikizi, representing the Okorobias, argued that the country should remain united. He said he believed that a united Muguland would be stronger and more prosperous than if the tribes were to go their separate ways. He said he believed that the Yorubawas also had much to gain from a united Muguland, including access to new markets and resources, and that the Awasas can make progress faster by getting access to everything available in the other more developed regions. While the regular citizens debated this in beer parlors, in their markets, and on the cow-rearing fields, the three leaders at the conference engaged in heated debates, each trying to convince the others of their point of view. The conference was contentious, and the debate over the issue of unity versus secession went on for weeks. You know, everyone was talking about it, whether in the beer parlors or just in the streets. It was the only thing on anyone's mind. Yeah, and even out in the fields, people couldn't stop discussing it. The future of Muguland was all we could think about. The passion and intensity of these debates showcased the deep divisions and strong convictions held by each faction, making it clear that the path forward would be anything but easy. As a way to reach a compromise at the Constitutional Conference and, move on to other issues, Sir Mansa Bello finally proposed that the Awasas would agree to be part of a united country. However, he wanted a provision inserted in the Constitution that would allow any region that felt the Union was not working for them later to then activate the option to secede from the Muguland nation. Again, only Chief Zikizi disagreed. He felt that such a clause in the constitution of a young country, such as they were going to get, would be a poison pill that would ultimately lead to chaos later. He argued that if any region knew they could activate a secession clause at any time, then, well, they would not have a strong incentive to make the Union work. Chief Zikizi, who was well known for his reference to classical mythology, reminded his fellow leaders of the military strategy of Attila the Hun, who was reputed to have had a strategy of always burning his ships when he and his soldiers landed in any country to invade it. Attila's theory was that if his warriors knew they could not get on their ships and run away when the battle got too hot, then they would always fight as if their very lives depended on a successful campaign. So he remained adamant that if they stayed together, then no one would get an easy exit key. He therefore argued forcefully against inserting any exit clause or secession clause in the new constitution. His slogan was, "We will rise together as smart people or perish separately as fools." Ultimately, and with the partial intervention of the colonial masters from Nandan, who were still teleguiding proceedings as Muguland prepared for independence, it was the suggestion of Chief Zikizi that won the day. The secession clause was consequently removed from the new constitution. The country would remain united, and the ethnic groups would work together to build a strong and prosperous Muguland. This rejection of an escape clause in the constitution for disaffected tribes in the Union would ultimately lead to unquantifiable bloodshed years later, as the merged tribes had no legal nor constitutional ways to end their forced marriage in a country some believed was not working for them, and it remains an albatross on the necks of the different tribes more than 60 years after independence. In a twist of irony, Chief Zikizi, who championed the cause for a united Muguland without a secession clause, unknowingly set the stage for a tragic future for his own Okorobia people. Years after independence, when the Okorobias felt marginalized and believed the Muguland Union was failing them, they had no peaceful legal recourse to secede due to the absence of a secession clause. This led them to declare independence violently, sparking a brutal civil war that cost over 1 million lives and devastated the Okorobia region for decades. As the unfolding saga of Muguland would reveal later, the very absence of the clause Zikizi fought against became the root of one of Muguland's darkest chapters. Of course, many of the Okorobias, when confronted with this fact of history, would argue that it was fake news and maintain that their beloved Zikizi never made any such arguments. In fact, the more stubbornly imaginative of the Zikizi apologists, when confronted with a written record of Zikizi's argument against a secession clause, would argue that he was actually being blackmailed by the colonial masters to make the argument at the time, and that he never believed in a one Nigeria concept. Meanwhile, as the country prepared for independence, the three leaders tried to put aside their differences and work together to create a new government that would represent all of Muguland's tribes. It was a difficult and challenging time, but the three leaders were committed to working together to build a better future for their people.
On October 1st, 1960, Muguland, brimming with hope and national pride, celebrated its independence. Sir Abud Tafafa Balawo from the Awosa tribe, after forming a surprising alliance with the Okorobias to form the first cabinet, became the first Prime Minister of Muguland, while Chief Nnana Zikizi of the Okorobias became the ceremonial president. In a strategic move aimed at possibly taking power at the center of power in the new nation, Chief Obafeso Awolowo, the influential leader of the Yorubawas, left his role as governor of the Western region to run for elections at the national level in hopes of becoming the prime minister if his party won a majority of the parliamentary seats. Unfortunately, his calculations did not play out as he expected, leading to tragic consequences for the nation and his beloved Western region a few years later. Contrastingly, Sir Mansabello of the Awosas, focused on uplifting his educationally lagging region, supported his colleague, Sir Abu Tafafa Balawo, for the central leadership. The Okorobias, under the shrewd and calculating leadership of Chief Zikizi, though with less reach than realizing the opportunity to lead the nation, forged an alliance with the North. This power-sharing agreement led to Chief Zikizi's appointment as president. However, this alliance resulted in the Yorubawas, led by Chief Awolowo, becoming the opposition in Muguland's new political arena. This dynamic interplay of regional strategies and alliances marked the beginning of Muguland's journey as an independent nation, setting the stage for future political landscapes. The celebratory atmosphere of independence was tinged with the complexities of regional ambitions and the unfolding narrative of power distribution in Muguland.
As the non-donor overseers packed their bags and left, the struggle for power in the newly independent Muguland intensified. The three major regions, the West, the East, and the North, were all jostling for power and influence, trying to gain the upper hand in the newly formed government. Chief Nnana Zikizi, the former premier of the Okorobia region, emerged the prime minister, having formed an alliance with the North to secure the position. The West, led by Chief Obafeso Awolowo, were not happy with this turn of events and saw it as a betrayal by the East. Chief Awolowo began to push for greater autonomy for the Western region, which led to tension between the regions. The North, under the leadership of Sir Abud Tafafa Balawo, were content with the status quo and keen to maintain the alliance with the East. The struggle for power was not just between the regions, but also within the regions themselves. In the West, there was a power struggle between Chief Awolowo and his deputy, who was keen to assert his authority and gain more power. In the East, Chief Nnana Zikizi faced stiff opposition from within his own party, with some members unhappy with the alliance with the North. Chief Nnana Zikizi, despite his ceremonial role as president, was seen as having lost power and influence in the new government. Many feared that the East would be left behind in the country's development, given that the new prime minister was from the North. As tension rose, the government became more fragile, and the different regions started pulling in different directions. The people of Muguland were anxious and worried about the future of their country. They had hoped that independence would bring prosperity and unity, but instead it seemed to tear them apart. As the struggle for power continued, the future of Muguland was uncertain. The people were hopeful things would get better, but as the new government faced the daunting task of building a new nation, Muguland struggled to overcome the deep divides and tension that existed between its various regions and tribes. While the future remained uncertain, the people of Muguland held on to the hope that their new leaders would be able to guide the country towards a brighter future. In the Yorubawa region of the newly independent Muguland, the political landscape was changing rapidly. Chief Awolowo, the leader of the ruling party in the Yorubawa region, who had handed over to his deputy to go and contest election at the center, went back to the Yorubawa region and tried to keep controlling the local politics after losing out in the national Game of Thrones at the center. His previously loyal deputy, Chief ALS Akolameho, who had become the official governor of the Yorubawa region, and having gotten a taste of raw power, refused to let his former boss call the shots anymore. In a region known for its steeped monarchical tradition of deference to elders or past leaders, most regarded this as a political affront by the former deputy to his former leader. As talks about how the master, Chief Awolowo, and his former ally, Chief Akolameho, would coexist in the region broke down officially, the two also had a very personal falling out. The two had been close allies for years, but their differences finally came to a head over issues of governance, ideology, and sharing the different spoils of democracy. The quarrel between the two political giants soon reached a boiling point, as a faction of the Yorubawa Action Congress pledged loyalty to Chief Awolowo, while another supported Chief Akolameyo. Chief Akolameyo, in a bid to consolidate his power in the West, started removing some of Chief Awolowo's appointees from prestigious positions in his government. He removed his nominees for foreign trips and dismissed members of prominent boards that were loyal to Chief Awolowo in a bid to consolidate his own power. This kept raising the political temperature in the Yorubawa region. And despite Chief Awolowo's maturity in trying to manage the escalating provocations, it soon became clear that something was going to give very soon, as supporters of both leaders started clashing off and on the streets. When the convention of the Yorubawa Action Congress came up, the crafty former premier then used his influence to get the Congress to scrap the post of the deputy leader of the party held by Chief Akolameho, stripping him and many of his loyalists of their offices. Later on, in the push to remove the premier for his many affronts against the more prominent Chief Awolowo, the Yorubawa House of Assembly passed a vote of no confidence in their premier and attempted to formally remove him from office. This attempt to end Chief Akolameho's tenure as premier led to an open brawl on the floor of the House. The mace was broken in the process, and many House members sustained serious injuries. Eventually, the governor of the region, Sir Adesoji Agbalagba, the most revered king in the region and a loyalist to Chief Awolowo, removed the premier from his post and appointed a loyalist of Chief Awolowo as the new premier. This was the final straw for Chief Akolameho, who promptly gathered his base and rejected the governor's proclamation removing him from office. He declared the proclamation order and all the attempts to end his political career a mission impossible, and declared the order against him null and void. His supporters thereupon disrupted the parliamentary sitting of the region, with police having to disperse everyone with tear gas after members of parliament had used broken bottles, broken chairs, and parts of the broken mace to stab one another. At this point, tension in the land had reached breaking point. Sporadic violence among the different factions became the order of the day, threatening the very fabric of the region. In an ostensive bid to quell the unrest, and despite the objections of the leader of the opposition, Chief Awolowo asserted that there was no breakdown of law and order in the region, but only in Parliament. This was done to evade the proclamation of state of emergency in the Yorubawa region. The head of government, Sir Abu Tafafa Balowo, who had formed an alliance with the new breakaway party of Chief Akolamejo, eventually declared state of emergency in the Yorubawa region anyway, ordering in military troops to restore order. The federal government thereupon appointed its own administrator in the person of Dr. Majekotanmi for the region under state of emergency powers. Majekotanmi, on assumption of office, then placed all the factional leaders of the warring Yorubawa Action Congress under house arrest. In typical fashion of an administrator taking sides, he only enforced the one against Chief Awolowo strictly, while Chief Akolameho and his own loyalists operated under less stringent restrictions. This was the situation as the region prepared for the next elections. As the crisis in the West continued to simmer under the state of emergency imposed, it was clear to the federal government, which had formed an alliance with Chief Akolameho, that Chief Awolowo was getting too powerful to control. As a leader of the opposition, the Yorubawa Action Congress continued to get stronger as it put more and more pressure on the fragile and docile government of Sir Abu Tafafa Balowo. As a superb lawyer with a cult-like following among the elites and common Yorubawas, Chief Awolowo gave every one of his political contemporaries nightmares. As his popularity grew, it was becoming clear that his party might win the upcoming regional elections against Chief Akolameho's new party, after he was expelled from the Yorubawa Action Congress. Everyone knew it was just a matter of time before he would put together the right coalition to win the next election, even at the lowest levels. Therefore, it was decided at the highest levels that the Lion of the Yorubawas had to be taken off the table before the next elections. As dawn broke on that fateful day, police officers and soldiers swooped on the premises owned by the loyalists of Chief Awolowo for a surprise search and found caches of guns and ammunitions. The federal government claimed this was evidence he was planning to overthrow the civilian government by force, and they charged him with treasonable felony. Over a dozen of his political associates were also charged along with him in the alleged plot to overthrow the civilian government. The whole nation and international observers were stunned at the turn of events, as one of the key architects of Muguland's democracy was now being charged with trying to overthrow it by force of arms. It was a story too juicy to be ignored, and the international press and observers swooped on the country for the mother of all trials in the newly independent nation of Muguland. It was obvious to all impartial observers the trial was a political ploy to silence Chief Awolowo, who had been a thorn in the government's flesh. He had been a fierce advocate for the rights of the Yorubawa people, and his popularity threatened the government's hold on power. As the trial commenced, Chief Awolowo was brought in, with his hands bound, but he held his head high, looking straight at his accusers, as if daring them to do their worst. The courtroom was packed with supporters and opponents of the accused. A palpable air of tension hung over everyone present. The prosecutor, Barrister Adenaloro, a very short and stern-looking man in a black robe, stood up to begin his case. He read out the charges against Chief Awolowo, accusing him of plotting to overthrow the government and replace it with his own. The evidence presented was damning, and to the chagrin of many, some of the long-term associates of Chief Awolowo showed up and testified against it. By the time the prosecutor rested his case, he was confident of a conviction, but he knew he was going against some of the best legal minds the region had to offer, and could not afford to count his chickens just yet. Barrister Adenaloro felt a little uneasy as he looked across at Chief Awolowo's defense team, led by fearsome and very tall Barrister Timmy Amofin, who had been a loyal friend and ally to the accused for many years. He knew Barrister Timmy had never lost a case in his entire career as a lawyer, and he did not know what kind of rabbit he would pull out from under his robe this time. When it was his turn, Barrister Timmy Amofin, who stood at 6 feet 5 inches tall compared to the 5 feet 4 inches tall prosecutor, argued that the evidence presented was circumstantial and that there was no direct proof of Chief Awolowo's involvement in the alleged conspiracy. He tore up each witness the prosecution produced with his highly effective cross-examinations. He even managed to get several of them to contradict their own stories on the witness stand under his famous withering cross-examinations. As Timmy Amofin rested his case for the accused, he was confident that he was going to win this case too, just as he had won every other case before it. The trial went on for many weeks, and tension continued to spread across Muguland. The supporters of Chief Awolowo were adamant that he was innocent and convinced the charges were politically motivated. The government, on the other hand, was determined to take down their nemesis and give a much-needed breathing space to Chief Akolameho, who had been their very loyal ally in the Yorubawa region. As the trials drew to a close, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. Everyone present knew that the verdict would have far-reaching implications on the future of Muguland. Finally, the verdict was announced. The presiding judge, affecting a sad face, announced, "My hands are tied." Based on the evidence before him, he explained that he had no choice in the matter at this point. He then found Chief Awolowo guilty of treasonable felony and sentenced him to 10 years in prison. The entire court froze in disbelief, and the news spread like wildfire across the country that the Lion of Yorubawa land had been caged. Timmy Amofin, the chief's previously unbeaten lawyer, had finally lost his first case and was devastated by the verdict. His unblemished record as a lawyer had been shattered. He had lost the case for a dear friend and ally, and the future of the opposition party looked bleak. As he slowly made his way out of the courtroom, with his over 30-man team of defense lawyers who had come to stand by their hero, he could hear the cries of hopelessness, mixed with anger and loud protests of the people who had gathered outside. Chief Awolowo had been a key figure in the struggle for Muguland independence, and his contributions to the country's development were widely recognized. He had fought against colonial rule and had been instrumental in the establishment and exponential growth of the Yorubawa region. But now, he found himself on the wrong side of the law. It was a political tragedy of epic proportions for a man who had dreamt of becoming the prime minister of the whole Muguland in the next elections that were just a few months away. Just before he was led out of the court in the customary chains of a convicted criminal, Chief Awolowo gave a stirring speech that brought almost everyone present to tears. He talked calmly and defiantly about his unfair conviction, but assured his supporters that though he was being led into the darkest tunnel his opponents could find, he would emerge at the end of the tunnel into a glorious light. Major international observers believed the trial was a sham, with trumped-up charges and a predetermined verdict. The people of the Yorubawa region also saw it for what it was, a political witch hunt. They rallied around their leader, calling for his release and for justice to be done. But the government who had arranged all this in the first place was not going to commute his sentence. Chief Awolowo was fitted with a loosely fitting prison uniform and led into the toughest jail in the land amidst heavy security. The trial of Chief Obafeso Awolowo was a dark moment in the history of Muguland. The judge, the prosecutor, and everyone who participated in that trial on the side of the government live in infamy until this day in Yorubawa land. The trial was also a reminder that even the greatest heroes could be brought down by the forces of politics and corruption. But it was also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of a man to accept his fate without getting his spirit broken. The Lion of Yorubawas has been caged, and that sad event unleashed a series of events that ultimately shattered the hopes and aspirations of millions of Mugulanders for decades.
We were children of the dawn when the light first broke through. Promised a future bright and strong in a land so vast, so true. But they sold our hopes for gold, traded dreams for bitter lies. Now the stories of the boy